Hello. So today I'm here with Michaela Gosselin, who is a Paralympic skier who's currently in China, somewhere in China at the Paralympics. But yeah, here's Michaela.
Hi, I'm Michaela Gosselin. I'm in Yanqing District in China at the Para Alpine Ski Center. Today's a day off, so I'm just chilling
That's
and
awesome.
getting ready to compete tomorrow and the next day as well.
That's awesome. So this is going to be our first, I guess, podcast interview with the WIBA and her campus collab for Women's Month because we didn't think a day was long enough. So let's start with this. So we're going to get Michaela to first kind of give us a history of how she got into her sport and kind of her journey towards her sport.
All right. I started skiing when I was 1.5 years old. My dad was on the national team for Canada, so he put me and my sister in as soon as we could walk. I started racing competitively when I was 5 years old, basically the youngest you can start, and raced up until 16. I was balancing multiple different sports, but by the time I was 16, which is grade 10, it was volleyball and soccer, and skiing was just so much of a time commitment that I kind of had to put it lower down in my list. And I coached for 2 years, but I very competitively up until I was 16 at Osabov Ski Club, which was amazing. Like some of the best years of my life, every weekend, and then sometimes Thursday, Friday, every single week during the year, just skiing, having fun, traveling, having an absolute blast. So ski racing has always been a part of my life, big in my family, huge culture. How I got into the Paralympics side's a little different. So I took 2 years off to coach. I'm a development level certified coach, which is pretty big because there's not a lot of female coaches. But I was diagnosed with chondrosarcoma, which is a type of bone cancer in my scapula in February of 2019. And as soon as I was diagnosed, maybe like a week after, I was actually told that I should come ski with the para team. And I actually didn't know we had a para team in Canada when I first found out. So I was like, I had no idea that it was a Paralympic sport or that Canada even had a team. So it was a bit of a shock. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit pissed off that they asked me. I wasn't even disabled yet, and they're already asking me to join the para team. So it took me a long time to kind of get over that. I had my surgery about 3 months or so later in May, where I had a complete scapulectomy and basically resection of all of my muscles that were attached to my scapula, total reconstructive surgery that left me with a upper limb impairment that definitely limits my mobility in my active range and just day-to-day activities. So that was a huge shock, really hard to deal with. I basically put an end to my volleyball career and soccer as well. But 6 months after my surgery, I was back on snow, probably a little bit too early. I wasn't quite healed. It took about 2 years to fully heal. And it was really tough in the beginning, relearning to ski. Because of my disability, I now have to ski with one ski pole, which doesn't seem like it would be a big change, but it really changes the way you balance, your core, and just your, everything.
Yeah, wow.
So that was hard, especially being in gates. My second day back, they threw me in full gate slalom, and I was like, I have no idea what to do anymore.
Also, I think one thing we should talk about too is that when this was all happening, I should say, I did get to actually go to high school with Michaela. I went to school with a famous person. I tell everyone, I'm like, oh, I know her. But this all happened when we were in grade 12. So you were 18.
Yeah.
18 years old trying to figure this all out. So I think that's kind of amazing. And you kind of took what maybe wasn't definitely wasn't kind of a good situation, but you made something out of it, and you were able to, not only kind of overcome cancer, but kind of achieve bigger and, I don't know, huge goals. I mean, you're at the Olympics right now. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
on TV. So I guess my next question then, and I mean, we've always known you've been so amazing at sports. I mean, I think you've won probably medals in every single sport you've ever competed in. So was skiing professionally, I guess, something you planned on doing, or pursuing just sport professionally something you planned on doing?
Yeah, I think I've always wanted to pursue a sport to the Olympic level, and for a long time it was skiing, but one of the toughest parts about sport is injuries, and I had the most injuries through skiing. My last 2 years, I had multiple shoulder surgeries, concussions, and I actually missed most of the season. So, although I loved the sport at that time, I was just ready to quit and pursue volleyball. But I'd always dreamed of going to the Olympics for skiing. It's one of my favorite times of the year, or every 4 years, I should say, to watch. And I'm always just like I just like idolize them all so much. It's so cool. And now that I'm actually, I train with them in the summer, all of our Olympians. It's a really cool experience. And I'm so happy to be here, even though it is the Paralympics, a little bit different and very different. I would say atmosphere too than racing able-bodied, which is something I noticed. Everyone's a lot more friendlier. It's also just smaller, so you know every single person that's here. But yeah, I'd always wanted to go. I thought I'd given up on skiing, so the fact that I'm here is it's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Because it's not the sport that I had thought I was going to pursue.
Yeah, but I guess it just, yeah, I guess sometimes, we plan so many things so strategically for our lives, but it's just, yeah, really just making the best out of situations. And wow, I do think that your athletic abilities, though, definitely helped you on this one as well. But do you think, though, being a woman, though, in sport, though, how do you find um, that aspect of it? And do you find, I know you're saying before that there's not a lot of female coaches, and that's something that's kind of missing in the ski world right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a minority because of my disability, but also because I am a woman. And if you look at the numbers in most sports, I'd say that there's just way less women in sport in general. Girls typically drop out by the time they're 17, like over 50% of them, I think, is a statistic. And in skiing, like, it's pretty notable here. There's over 100 men in our slalom race in a couple days, and there's only about 50 women.
Wow.
So it's just like the cutoff is quite huge, and it's sad, but I feel like it's just the women in sport kind of goes back. We need to start developing them early. Like, I know there's been big initiatives like Fast and Female to try and get more women in sport and empower women, and I'm happy to be part of that too. But yeah, like right now, I'd say of our team, we have like one more woman than we do men on my Paralympic team from Canada for alpine skiing. But we only have one female coach out of 5. So, and it was hard to even get one coach. So it's a huge drop off between coaching. So if you look at like a girl, you're only seeing men. Like, I had very few female coaches growing up, besides when I was very little. And it's hard because you don't really see someone ahead of you just kind of teach you the way. And like having a female mentor makes such a huge impact, and staying in the sport, enjoying it, and just having someone you can more relate to. I like my male coaches a lot, but sometimes you just need a female coach, and just the woman to woman makes a big difference in confidence and just being able to see someone else in the sport. So
yeah, I totally understand that. Whenever you want to pursue anything, it makes it always easier if there's someone that has already made it, but is someone that you can identify with. It makes you feel like, wow, I can do that too. So that's very true. And then I guess, so what's it been like being at the games? What are the games like this year?
Well, it's hard because going into the games, I had been told so many different things from my teammates. Quite a lot of them are multiple Paralympians, from my coaches too that had been to the games before. And the biggest thing that I was told up to a year or year 2, because it's from the pandemic, is that this games is going to be very different. It's not going to be like any other games you've been to. And I think that was hard for me because one of the reasons that people stay in sport is just for the games. You know, it's the best
Yeah.
part. It's 4 years of training worth it. And we're just not getting quite the same experience as they did in Korea or Sochi or any of the other games besides Tokyo.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we wear masks all the time. The biggest difference I'd say is actually that none of our friends or family were able to come and watch us. We usually have Canada House, like a whole part for just our friends and family. We can see them all the time. They can party with them. They can watch our events, and just you have like a really good atmosphere, like in just Canada, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's like we're pretty isolated, and yeah, it's just everything, the little things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of our games rooms and stuff aren't open. Like usually there's a lot of activities to do with the game. Thing is very I don't have a very different feel. Sorry, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything to compare to, but sport in the pandemic has been extremely difficult. And although it's really cool to be in Asia in a different country, yeah, I think I might have to stick around to Italy just to get a more normal feeling games.
I think that's a good idea, and I think there's definitely potential for you to do so, and I will not be surprised if I see you on TV again, racing down a mountain. So what has been, I guess, your favorite event so far at the games?
I'm gonna have to go with downhill. My favorite event is Super Combined. Unfortunately, I went through the last panel and was disqualified, which was very heartbreaking for me because that was my biggest podium chance. So I still have 2 more events, but it hasn't been going quite as well as I had hoped. But I'm still optimistic about the tech events and everything. But yeah, it's also just fun to be able to watch everyone.
Yeah.
So how it works in the Paralympics for alpine skiing anyways is for the speed days and the combined days, it's men and women. So women go first, men after. So it's kind of like a long day, but you're with everyone. But for tech events, it's men and women on separate days. So the men are actually competing today, and we get to watch them, and then we compete tomorrow. So it's just a really fun atmosphere because we don't usually get spectators. So the fact that we actually have some at the games is something that's quite different.
Yeah,
than
yeah.
the season.
Especially, and I guess especially like you were saying before with the pandemic and not being allowed to have spectators, it must feel nice to have some.
Yeah, it's also just traveling. So last year, the whole Canadian and the American teams weren't able to really travel or race at all.
Yeah.
We're primarily based out of Europe. That's where all our World Cups are. So not being able to go over there because of quarantining and stuff was very hard. We spent the entire year in Canada, and even just traveling in Canada was quite difficult. So in a ways, I didn't think we were going to be quite as prepared as some of the European teams, having raced so much more than we have. But I think we're still doing quite well. But yeah, the pandemic is, it's been hard for everyone, but sport too. Like I'm lucky that I was able to travel at all, where some people couldn't. But yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. So then, I guess, what are you thinking then for the future? What's next?
Honestly, I'm not really thinking that far ahead. I'd like to get some education, but I think I'm gonna need a big vacation after the games. It's very stressful. It's physically and mentally demanding, especially having World Championships this year too. So it's been quite a busy season, and looking ahead is a bit daunting right now. So
yeah,
I'm just gonna take it.
I think that's the best thing you can do, and just to enjoy your times and make the most out of kind of the different games that they are, but just make the most. And I guess as a final question I should ask, how's the Lululemon? Is it worth the hype? Because we all have seen it on TikTok.
Lululemon is one of my favorite parts for sure. It's amazing. The one thing I do have to say is our kit, we had some issues. Most of it is delayed. We haven't gotten everything. They printed the logos upside down, so it wasn't quite as smooth as it was for the Olympics for us, but the kit itself is amazing. I really don't have any complaints. It's very well done. We look good. I think we're one of the best dressed here for sure.
I think so, for sure.
Countries I'm looking at, I'm like, ooh, I wish I had your kit. So
yeah,
I think they did a great job, and it's really nice to have a brand that is treating us equally as opposed to other brands in the past, like Hudson Bay, that wouldn't give us the same as the Olympics, like treated us differently. So to be able to have that equality in our sport is a really good step for the Paralympic movement, and yeah, just super stoked with the Lulu.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you very, very much for taking the time out of your morning, I should say, to talk with us. And yeah, we wish you the best of luck at your next event.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.